This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KBNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Well, he got me at being born and growing up in Minnesota, but he's a childhood actor, philanthropist, tech entrepreneur. I got to say, probably the most engaged, maybe the most intelligent IQ terms recent presidential candidate I have talked to, befriended, met. His name is Brock Pierce. He is running for president, and he's not just on the ballot here in the great state of Alaska. He's on the ballot in numerous states, and we're going to talk about that. Brock Pierce, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you have been on the campaign trail, and you and your team of very engaged and intelligent staff members are making a difference. And folks, if you look at the trail of inspiration Mr. Pierce has laid out, it's impressive and it's remarkable, especially for your future as only a 39-year-old entrepreneur. What made you decide to run for president of the United States?
Well, I look around, and if you see what I see, if you feel what I feel, you'll notice something's wrong. And so I can summarize why I'm running for office in one word, and that's love. Love for this country, love for the American people at a time where I am deeply concerned about our collective future. I think we're doomed if we don't do something different.
The partisanship is not just frustrating to many voters, it's discouraging. And I, for one, and I'll bet you have associates and friends and family members that have said the same thing, which is, and I know our listeners feel this way, maybe I won't even vote because there's not a choice. I'm frustrated with Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump. They're lifelong, in-your-face polemicists or politicians or people that look more at bling than solving problems. I've heard that from many. Do you feel you're the choice?
Well, I'm here to inform people and to remind the American people that most importantly, we're supposed to act according to our conscience. Vote your conscience. Do whatever you believe is right. And if my vision for the future of this country inspires you, yes, please vote for me. If you think the ideas and policies that I like to discuss are the things that are not being discussed elsewhere, I'm here to point out the elephant in the room.
Brock.vote is his website. It's a thoughtful website that goes over, there's videos and topics and subject matter that may very well be near and dear to Alaskans' hearts. We'll make a YouTube video of this shortly after the program. So at a national level, for those of you listening, watching, hearing, I will compliment Brock first and foremost because he said, hey, Tom, I'd like to meet. I'd like to talk with you. And we met, and I've never, ever, and I've been in the political game 3.5 decades and served in office at many levels from city to state. And I've never met someone more educated and researched on the state of Alaska. So on YouTube, if you're listening from a different state, trust me, he's doing the same for your state. But Arctic infrastructure, the military bases in Anchorage and Fairbanks, and I know you're headed to Fairbanks soon, deepwater ports, the fact that you're meeting with the Palins and you're meeting with mayors and you're meeting with lawmakers, and Lieutenant Governor Mead Treadwell, another CEO certainly cut from the same motivational fabric as you really researched Alaska. Do you feel that's important for a statesperson?
Yeah, I think that, well, first and foremost, we're here to show up. Showing up is the first and most important step in everything we do. And then from there, to take the time to actually learn, to listen. And so I've shown up, and I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn. And I also live in Puerto Rico, and some of the same issues that Puerto Rico faces, there's some parallels here with Alaska. For example, the Jones Act. I know a lot about it because it's one of the main issues that exist in Puerto Rico, and you've probably never heard a presidential candidate even mention it.
We have not. I can guarantee that. And we've had a few on the show, from Sanders to even recently Governor Jesse Ventura, who is also from the state you're from, the Gopher State, Minnesota. And I know that you're going to meet with him and compare notes. And that was an interesting interview, to be sure. I think that you're pragmatic and more thoughtful. I like Jesse, the governor, but I think that you're on to something. One of the claims to fame you have is not just your kindness and your altruism and your philanthropy. Okay, you're rich, you made a lot of money, but you're humble. And when we talked, that's not something that you highlight, but your business skill sets and your entrepreneurial skill sets and your tech skill sets have made you, in a positive way, a globalist, where you're someone that can bring people together. Yesterday, I mentioned to you General Robert Spalding and his book on China, and you said, "I know, Bob Spalding well." Do you think your relationships would be important as a president?
Of course. I mean, these are the tools that we show up with. And so I've spent my life, with open arms trying to meet people from all facets of life. And I've spent my time with a curious mind, eager to learn. And I've worked across a number of industries. I've held offices all over the world. And all of that learning, all of those relationships are the things that I bring to bear, the things that I bring to the table that equip me for this type of job.
One thing that endeared me to you when we spoke, and I mentioned other countries, and you said you have relationships or business infrastructure or both in many, and you've been an ambassador for some countries and some secondary levels of countries. You brought up South Korea. You brought up Japan, you brought up the Philippines, and you said these are very special places culturally, ethnically. Well, my friend, in Alaska, for instance, 12%, almost 13% of our population, maybe demographically the most in the nation per capita. 12 to 13% is Asian, and half of that in Alaska is Filipino. Do you look at foreign relations? Your style is thoughtful and engaging and complimentary. We've seen from Biden and Trump less than that. Is that important? Ambassadorial and statesperson skills?
Absolutely. I mean, we don't share. The United States does not occupy this entire planet. We share this Earth with a number of other nations, and it's important that we have good relations with our neighbors and with all countries of this Earth to the extent that we can find a balance and find a way to work together. I'm not a nationalist or a globalist. I think that you need to take care of your home first. It's like on an airplane, put your mask on before taking care of others. But we also share this Earth, and it's important that we get along and work together to the best of our abilities.
You've worked with some of the biggest and the brightest, and I won't go through your list because we wouldn't have enough time to talk about them. And I look at you as someone with certainly debt and fiscal policy expertise from a business standpoint and from your civic engagement. When I look to vote for a candidate, whether it's local, state, federal, presidential, I look at their skill sets because that's very important to me as a businessman myself and as a former public servant. So when you look at what Alaska has since you're here, permanent fund dividend, the fact that we get oil, we have 50, 60 billion in the bank, and part of that we save and we distribute back. I want to talk about that. And then for the next segment, we've got you for two. I'd like to talk about your thoughts on federal land. A lot of land in Alaska is owned by the feds, and what your thought is state by state on that. But first, before we go to a break, what do you think of our permanent fund dividend and that notion that you give back some money to the public?
I think it's a great idea, and that's one of the main things I'm interested in better understanding is how that has been performing for the people of Alaska. Conceptually, I think it's great, and what I'm trying to better understand is how well is it being executed? Is that permanent fund providing the necessary infrastructure for the people, and clearly putting money into the hands of people, if you have the luxury, the blessing of abundance, is a wonderful thing.
When I spoke with Brock Pierce, again, you can find out more information. You can support him. You can donate to him at brock.vote. He's going state by state where he is on multiple ballots, and we'll talk about that as well, what states he's been, because for those watching the YouTube video of this, you might be in a state he's coming to near you. And the fact that you understand the permanent fund dividend, the process at least, and the fact that we have oil wealth and we save some of it, I love that you have said you would like to see other states do that and the national government do that. Saving is a big deal. So many states are running on deficit. I'm glad that you've noted that because I haven't heard that from your opponents. Trust me, saving money and having a bank account is a big deal for a state, isn't it?
Yeah, America has a debt problem. Starting at a federal level, we've got a debt problem. Our big corporations have a debt problem. And as a result of that, the American people have a debt problem. And fiscal responsibility, balancing our budgets, and trying to save for the future is something we should all be doing. And it starts at our government. That's That's what's here to govern over us, and they need to lead by example.
Absolutely. His name is Brock Pierce. You can find out more at brock.vote. He wants to be the next president of the United States, and if not this time, in 2024, my friends. Stay with us on The Tom Anderson Show.
This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Governor Jesse Ventura, Brock Pierce. What do those names have in common? That's right, they're running for president of the United States of America. Brock Pierce, I believe, is the youngest. He's 39. He's an entrepreneur, really a tech giant in his own right, and an innovator when we get into crypto and other facets of technology. You talk to him, I've met him, and you're charmed, you're swooned. You know why? Because you have someone of great power that doesn't act like that. He doesn't toss it in your face. He's humble, and he's brilliant. He's rich, but he's also very altruistic, and he doesn't have any pretentiousness. And his team, his campaign team, you can always tell because it's my day job to look and measure by someone's team. They're brilliant and just as humble and capable. So Brock Pierce, second segment of the interview, brock.vote if you want to find out more information or support him or donate to him. Look at his videos. One of the neatest things about your website, and we build them a dime a dozen every day for political candidates, you know me, across the nation. One thing I like is that what I see right at the top, folks, if you go to brock.vote, our agenda, principles, policies, join us, our story. That shouts humility, and that shouts, I'm an open book. Is that something you take pride in? You talk about relegalizing cannabis or health care or the criminal justice reform, universal earned income. You're not hiding anything, are you? You're telling your stances bold and transparently, it looks like.
Yeah, philosophically, I'm a big believer in truth and transparency. Let there be light.
Absolutely. Do you think with the universal income idea, do some people raise an eyebrow? Do they say, hey, wait a minute, we can't give a set income? Or are people saying, thank you? A lot of us are starving to death and need the help, need the nudge.
Yeah, this is definitely one that creates a lot of conversation and causes people to be somewhat concerned. And so this is a good one to talk about. So technology, I'm a technology entrepreneur, principally by background, consistently building things out of nothing, and mostly things that have never been done before. Things where when I present the idea, people say that's impossible. And I say it's only impossible because it hasn't been done before. Watch me. And so, unfortunately, technology is going to be replacing a lot of our jobs, or fortunately, right? I live to work, or I live to serve. There are a lot of people that work, to live or to survive. And with technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, automation, the landscape of work is going to be changing, and it's not just impacting service-level jobs. You've got 3.5 million truck drivers, then add taxi, Uber, Lyft. It's stockbrokers, doctors, surgeons, lawyers, accountants. The landscape of work is changing, and so we have to find a way to make sure that the American people's most basic needs are met so that no one is starving to death, that everyone has some form of shelter or roof over their head, and everyone has access to some form of health care. If we don't do that, we're going to have tens of millions of desperate Americans. And when people are desperate, when their back is up against the wall, survival takes precedent over values and principles. This is when the pitchforks come out. And so we have to find a way to do that. We don't have to increase taxes to do it. We have to realign incentives. Just take a look at things like unemployment. It discourages people to go back to work. Take a look at our welfare system. It's created a welfare class in this country. We can do better. We can structure things differently. And from a resource perspective, we are the wealthiest nation in the world. We don't have a resource problem. We have a resource allocation problem, an accountability problem, an efficiency problem, an administrative problem. And these things can be fixed. We can do better.
You have, and I've monitored and talked to your team, and it's not hidden. You've gone grassroots on people, and you have gone state by state, meeting with city council members and assembly members and county commissioners and mayors and governors and lieutenant governors like last night, and state representatives and state senators. that means something, I think, to people in a respective state when you come a calling. In Alaska, you've met with lawmakers. One of the big deals here, we legalized cannabis a few years ago, and up comes a very regulated, thoughtful, from labs to grows to actual dispensing. We're one of the few states where we do have some communities where you can smoke like a bar. You can smoke the marijuana and test it out, or like a cigar bar. You are looking at, and you're one of the few that has the courage to do this, re-legalizing cannabis at a federal level, so that there's not these inconsistencies. Right? You can smoke it in Alaska, but you can't in another state. Have you found resonation with that, with people saying, "Hey, thank you, potentially future President Pierce. Thank you for looking at that federally."
Absolutely. So, cannabis saved my mother's life. She became a victim of the opioid epidemic, prescription pills after a surgery that was destroying her life, and cannabis saved her life. But just the idea that I say re-legalize, the idea that we have to re-legalize nature, the fact that we outlawed nature to begin with, just it's like an oxymoron. And what most people don't understand is why we outlawed nature in this case. I think it was in 1932, and it was DuPont that pushed for it because their new plastics couldn't compete with hemp. And so we outlawed nature in favor of plastics. This is one of those things where we need to step back and re-legalize nature. Hemp as a material for construction is incredible. It's sustainable. There's so much good to be found in nature, and I think we need to take a step back and embrace that whenever possible.
And is
and
that
at a federal level, from a cannabis perspective, yeah, it's crazy that the federal government still considers it illegal. 2/3 of Americans are in agreement that this train has already left the station, and so from a federal level, I would pardon and expunge everyone in our criminal justice system for cannabis-related crimes, nonviolent crimes. Give these people their freedom back. We're supposed to be the land of the free. I would, at a federal level, stop the enforcement and then work with Congress to get it legalized, and work with foreign nations where we have treaties in place to get it legalized.
Yeah, you just scored millions upon millions of votes with your criminal justice reform measures, I can assure you there. One other question, and then I know you got to bounce, and he's got a lot of interviews ahead because people want to meet Brock Pierce. You can find out more at brock.vote. And again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. This will be posted and spread out nationally forthcoming today. Brock, you are here. You're looking at this balance. You mentioned the nexus between nature and ecosystems and responsible natural resource development, oil, gas, minerals. A minute and a half left. Do you support responsible natural resource development, rare earth minerals, things of that nature?
Absolutely. I mean, energy is mission critical for our survival, and our goal is to keep getting better. And so, absolutely, I support energy production and renewable energies to the extent we can. We're moving in that direction. We're moving in the right direction. I feel great about that. Rare earths here in Alaska are a huge deal. You mentioned earlier federal land. I'm philosophically someone that does not believe in centralizing authority or power, and so I'm a big advocate for giving more choice, more freedom to the states and local governments, and to the extent possible, I think that Alaska is better suited to take care of its federal land than our federal government is in Washington, D.C.
God bless Brock Pierce. You're speaking music, singing music to my ears, and I tell you, the Alaskans I know that have met you have felt the same endearment, because whether you win or lose, you're on the right step for policies for health care, for drug and criminal justice reform, for infrastructure, Arctic development. And I would love to get you back on again, my friend. If you want to follow him, it's brock.vote, Facebook, Twitter, all of the social media channels. Your next step is, I know you're going to interview with the channel to the NBC and the CBS folks, and then you're going to Fairbanks. One last question. Where are you going next for people interested in following your travels?
Yeah, so after Fairbanks tomorrow night, I'll be flying back to Minnesota, my home state. I'll be in Minnesota for a little over a day, and then I'll be making my way to Wyoming for the Independent National Convention, or the INC. And it's possible that the INC, in its first year, in its inaugural year, might be bigger than the DNC and the RNC combined. I think that as a nation, we're ready for independence again.
I believe it. His name is Brock Pierce. He's running for president. He asked for your vote November 3rd or before. Voting is open now in Alaska. Brock.vote online. It's the Tom Anderson Show.